You try to rest, but your chest is already in next week. Your body sits still, but your mind is building answers, scenarios, defenses. Even in quiet rooms, there's noise inside, a background tension, like an engine running beneath your thoughts. You don't notice it until you try to stop. And even then, stopping feels unsafe, like presence might cost you something. So you keep thinking forward, as if peace lives in the next version of you. Breathe with me, just for a moment. Let go of the next 5 steps. Let go of trying to manage what hasn't happened. You don't have to understand everything right now. You don't need to plan your way out of this moment. You are allowed to be here, exactly as you are. You are not falling behind. You are arriving. We live inside a world that rewards movement. The faster, the better. The more certain, the more valuable. And you learn early that slowing down might mean being left behind. So you train your mind to stay ahead. You make productivity your identity. You treat urgency like safety. But underneath that pace, something sacred is being missed. The truth is, you can't feel clarity while running. And most of the confusion you feel isn't because you lack direction, it's because you've been leaving your own presence behind. You've been trying to carry too much of the future in a mind that's already tired. And your soul is asking for something simpler. Not easier, just more honest. Jesus never hurried. He walked, he paused, he looked people in the eyes. He waited until the moment was fully ripe. Even when he knew the future, he didn't rush toward it. Because presence wasn't a pause in his mission, it was the mission. The way he walked was as important as where he walked. You think peace will come when things are solved, when the next season starts, when you finally arrive. But peace isn't waiting for you there. It's already available here, if you stop leaving to chase it. The future cannot give you what you refuse to receive in the present, and the present is where grace is born. There's a passage in Matthew that says, "Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself." Not because tomorrow doesn't matter, but because your soul was not built to carry 2 days at once. And most of the emotional weight you feel isn't coming from today. It's coming from the pressure to prepare for every possible tomorrow. Let yourself pause. Not to quit, not to avoid, but to listen. To notice how fast your mind is spinning. To notice what your body is holding. Let your breath remind you that you are alive, now. Not in your thoughts, but in this moment. Not in your fear, but in your being. Here is where your life actually touches you. When planning becomes escape, you lose the ability to hear. You stop noticing the small alignments, the quiet nudges, the voice of God that rarely interrupts, but always invites. The more noise you create about what's coming, the harder it is to feel what's already arriving. And that arrival is sacred. Maybe you're afraid that if you stop running, you'll fall apart. But presence doesn't break you. It holds you. It slows your breathing. It reintroduces you to yourself. Not the future self you're trying to build, the one that's already here. The one Christ sees even when you're too busy to look. There's a different kind of planning that comes from presence. It's not frantic, it's not strategic in the worldly sense. It's rooted, clear, spirit-led. It begins with asking not, what do I need to control, but what am I being invited into today? That kind of planning doesn't separate you from life. It deepens your participation in it. Stay with this, even if your mind tries to wander, even if part of you wants to skip ahead. You're not here to figure it all out. You're here to feel what's already true. You're here to walk slowly enough that your spirit can keep up. And Christ, He walks at the pace of presence. So much of your anxiety is not because you're lost, it's because you've been trained to move faster than your peace. And when you slow down, it's not a failure, it's a return. A return to the moment where the Father still meets you, not with answers, but with breath. Not with pressure, but with presence. The now isn't perfect, but it's real, and that makes it holy. This is the time you've been given. This is the place where your soul can rest, even if it's unfinished, even if the road ahead still feels uncertain. You don't need the full map to take the next step. You only need to be here to receive it. Planning with presence means you don't abandon the now to protect a future that doesn't yet exist. You build from what is, not from what you fear. You let the Spirit guide what's next without rushing what's still unfolding. That's not passive, that's aligned, that's alive. You don't have to choose between vision and presence. You were made for both. You can walk forward with a heart that's still soft. You can imagine tomorrow without abandoning today. And when Christ is your center, your steps begin to carry peace instead of chasing it. Let this moment be your anchor. Let it hold you, even if your thoughts try to pull you ahead. You don't have to finish the journey in your mind to take your place inside it. Just begin by noticing that you are here, breathing, listening, receiving. That alone is a sacred beginning. Maybe you've spent years trying to plan your way into peace, but now you're being invited to rest your plans inside peace itself, to walk not for validation, but from groundedness, to trust that whatever you're building will be stronger if you don't lose yourself while building it. And here, in this breath, something soft opens. Not a solution, but a presence. Not an answer, but a return. Stay with it. Let the moment hold you. Let it say, you're allowed to be here, without rushing, without fixing, just here, with Christ beside you, awake and whole. To plan the future without leaving the now means staying rooted while reaching forward. It's knowing that you can dream and still breathe, that you can imagine more without rejecting where you are. In real life, this shows up in the way you hold your calendar, in the way you make decisions, not just for outcomes, but from alignment. It's not about controlling the path, it's about walking it awake. But that's not how most of us were trained. We were taught to anticipate problems before they appear, to never be caught off guard, to treat planning like a form of safety, and in many ways it is. But when planning becomes a way to avoid being here, it becomes something else entirely, a subtle escape, a quiet rejection of what is. You might find yourself constantly thinking 3 steps ahead, not because you're excited, but because you're afraid. Afraid to miss something, afraid to fall behind, afraid that if you stop, everything you've built might fall apart. And when fear becomes the foundation of your plans, even the future feels heavy before it begins. That weight builds in small ways, in the way you overcommit, in how you fill every space with productivity, in the guilt you feel when you rest. And slowly, without realizing it, your identity shifts. You're no longer someone who lives, you're someone who manages life. You stop asking how you feel. You only ask what needs to be done. This disconnection from now is not a failure. It's a learned defense. And sometimes it even looks like wisdom. But Christ offered a different kind of wisdom, not reactive, not rushed. In Luke 14, he said, "Who among you intending to build a tower does not sit down first and count the cost?" He believed in planning, but he also believed in pausing, in discernment, in presence before action. Jesus was not anti-future, but he was always grounded in the moment he was in. He planned through prayer, not pressure. He made space for silence before stepping into purpose. And his life shows us this truth. Real clarity does not come from mental noise. It comes from spiritual stillness, from being so deeply rooted in the now that the next step unfolds from peace, not panic. You'll know you've left the present when your body starts to feel distant, when your shoulders tense without cause, when your breath becomes shallow, when your thoughts loop around imaginary problems. These are signs, not faults, invitations, not warnings. Each one says, you're leaving yourself again. Come back. Coming back doesn't mean abandoning your goals. It means remembering that you're a person, not a plan. It means honoring the moment you're in, not as a stepping stone, but as a sacred piece of your becoming. Even when it's unclear, even when it's uncomfortable, especially then. You are not only the architect of your future, you are also the ground where that future will grow. And the quality of your attention, your emotional posture, becomes the soil. When you pour fear into your vision, it grows roots of anxiety. When you pour trust and presence, it grows in freedom, in flow, in grace. Sometimes we think planning with faith means waiting passively. But faith is not passivity. It's participation. It's trusting enough to listen, to ask, to walk slowly. It's the courage to not rush into every open door, and the wisdom to recognize which ones are truly meant for you. And that discernment only grows when you stay close to your own center. This center is where Christ meets you, not in theory, but in experience. He doesn't push you forward, he walks beside you. His rhythm is unhurried, intimate, responsive. He sees your fear before you speak it, and he answers it not with blueprints, but with presence, with reminders like, I am with you always, not later, now. Planning from this place feels different. It's more like breathing than building. You write, but not in panic. You decide, but not out of urgency. You hold vision, but you also hold yourself. And your calendar becomes a tool for service, not a measure of your value. You don't have to chase time anymore. You walk with it. You begin to recognize that success is not only measured by outcomes. It's measured by the soul you keep intact along the way. The version of you that stays gentle, even while holding responsibility. The part of you that still feels, still listens, still prays. You don't have to lose yourself to be prepared. You just have to remember who you are while you plan. That remembering is daily, not a one-time revelation, but a posture, a habit of checking in, of asking, am I here right now or already gone? Am I planning from fear or from peace? These questions don't delay you, they define you. They bring you back into alignment with what truly matters. Because what you build externally will never compensate for what you abandon internally. You could organize your life perfectly and still feel lost. Or you could walk through uncertainty with presence, with Christ, and still feel anchored. What holds you isn't certainty, it's connection. So pause, not to fix, not to judge, but to return. To the version of you that still trusts the now. To the breath that doesn't need a reason. To the quiet place where peace still lives, even in the middle of unknowns. This is where your future begins. Not out there, but here. And when you're ready to step forward again, you'll do it differently. With less noise, with more clarity, with your heart fully inside your body, not trailing 3 days ahead. You'll move with rhythm, not reaction. With trust, not tension. With grace, not grinding. Planning with presence is not about slowing down your goals. It's about slowing down your spirit long enough to remember what they're really for. Not just achievement, but embodiment. Not just results, but meaning. Not just arrival, but awakening. And maybe that awakening is already beginning. Not with a big decision, but with the breath you're taking right now. The one that doesn't rush, the one that holds your whole life just as it is. You're not falling behind. You're falling into rhythm, and that rhythm is holy. If this message found a home in you, I want to offer something simple, not advice, not a formula, just a few steps that can hold your attention in real life. The kind of steps that don't add noise, they create space. Because the future doesn't need you to hurry. It needs you to be here so it can grow from presence. First, choose one moment every morning to arrive. Before your to-do list, before your notifications, before the weight of what's expected, arrive. Place your hand on your chest and simply say, I'm here. That's it. This short ritual realigns your focus, not toward what's missing, but toward what is already moving in you. Second, when you feel pressure rising, don't push through it. Pause for 60 seconds. Close your eyes if you can. Breathe. Ask, am I planning from fear or from peace? Let that question interrupt the momentum of anxiety. Let it become a doorway back to clarity, not because you fix anything, but because you return to your center. Third, practice writing your plans like prayer, not prediction. Leave space in your journal, in your calendar, for what you can't control. Write your desires with open hands. Invite Christ into your week, not to approve your direction, but to walk it with you. That shift changes the atmosphere, from pressure to partnership. I once met someone who lived with such stillness that time seemed to slow when you were around them. She wasn't lazy, she was luminous. She had plans, responsibilities, goals, but she carried them with softness. I asked her once how she managed to stay so grounded. She said, I don't ask what I have to do today. I ask who I want to be while I do it. That answer stayed with me because it reminded me that presence is not a pause from life. It is the quality of life itself. And who you are while you plan is just as important as what you plan. You can schedule 1,000 things, but if you're not in them, they become performance. But if your heart is present, even one thing becomes sacred. You may still have days when you rush. That's okay. This is not about perfection. It's about returning, again and again, to your breath, to your body, to the awareness that Christ is not waiting for you at the finish line. He's walking beside you at the pace of presence. So if all you do tomorrow is slow down once, it's enough. If you look at your schedule and breathe instead of brace, that's already healing something. And if you forget, as we all do, remember, you are still held. You are not late. You are loved in real time, not in your imagined potential. This path is not abandoning your future. It's about learning how to carry it differently, with peace instead of panic, with surrender instead of strategy, with God as your guide, not just your approval. And when that becomes real in you, even your plans begin to feel lighter. You might be surprised how much clarity shows up when you stop forcing it, when you allow silence to speak, when you stop praying for control and start listening for rhythm. God does not rush you, and peace does not demand a deadline. It only asks, are you here? Let presence become your compass. Let it inform your next step, not with noise, but with knowing. Because when you live from this place, you don't need to figure out every detail. You just need to take one real step, with your heart inside your body, with Christ beside you. And maybe that's why you're here, not because you need another system, but because you need a reminder that you still belong in your own life, that your value is not measured by your efficiency, that you are not here to be productive, you are here to be whole. If this video walked with you in any way, I invite you to stay close. Subscribe to this space, not for content, but for presence. For moments like this, where you can breathe and remember what you already know deep down. That peace isn't far, it's just quiet. And if you feel a little more rooted than when you arrived, honor that. Don't rush out of this. Sit with it. Let the stillness do what striving never could. Let it shape you. Let it bless what comes next. Not through control, but through connection. You are not building your life alone. You are not walking your path by guesswork. You are being guided. Gently, patiently, precisely. Trust that. Even when the way is unclear, especially then. Your next step is not about answers. It's about presence. Christ is not calling you to plan harder. He's inviting you to walk slower, to notice, to ask again, to trust again. Not because everything is certain, but because He is. And when that becomes your foundation, your plans become prayer without even trying. Let this be a final breath, not of ending, but of remembering. A quiet place you can return to when the world starts to spin too fast again. A moment that stays with you, like soft light at the edge of your day. You don't have to hold it perfectly. Just let it live in you. Here, now. May God bless you deeply, and may you walk awake, with Christ at the center.